What's going on, Pokemon Go trainers? Welcome to episode 32 of the LuredUp podcast creator series, the podcast bringing your favorite content creators to talk about their work, process, and the game that brings it all together, Pokemon Go. LuredUp is part of the Pokemon Professor Network, and today is Monday, August 8th, 2022. I'm your host, Ken Pescatore, and I'm excited today to be joined for the fourth time by a good friend of the show, JT Valor. What's up, my dude? How are you, man?
Doing great. How you doing, man?
I'm doing phenomenal. Excellent. Much better now that I'm within your digital presence.
Oh, stop. Come on. You're going to make me blush.
So what's going on, man? How are you?
I've been pretty good, been trying to think of how I'm going to make certain things work out because there's been some safari zones that have been recently announced and trying to see if that's possible. But other than that, things have been great.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm actually looking forward to talking about some of the travel stuff as we get into the meat and potatoes here, because I know that you're constantly bouncing around the globe, which is really exciting for me as a consumer of your content, because I get to see the sights without having to leave my living room here, and I could still be sitting in a chair in my underwear, and yet I'm looking at fun places in Berlin and things like that through your content. Right. So
which I get to do in my underwear. That's fantastic.
So why don't we start from the top? I know you've been on the show a couple times, but our audience has definitely shifted and grown over the years. So why don't you take a moment to introduce yourself, let us know where you're from, and then we'll kind of dig into your relationship with the Pokemon franchise and content at large. So give us a little bit about the JT Valor experience.
Well, hi, everybody. How you doing? I'm JT Valor, the self-proclaimed Shiny King of Pokemon Go. Certainly for America. I don't know about Australia. I think somebody else probably takes that one. But yeah, no, I do YouTube videos mostly. I also stream on Twitch and very rarely make a video here and there on TikTok. But yeah, I mostly just shiny grind and try to travel as much as I can when I play this game. And yeah, I have a lot of fun while I do it.
Nice. And when did you first learn of Pokemon? So take us back. Pokemon's been around, more than 2 decades now, and it's still a part of so many people's lives currently on a daily basis. But when did you first learn about the franchise, and how has that relationship kind of developed over the past, however long it's been since you've known that Pokemon was a thing?
Well, I guess it starts off with many addictions when you're young. My mother handed me a Game Boy Color and Pokemon Blue version and told me to play this while she was doing something with friends when we were living overseas. So I booted up the game and picked a Bulbasaur because I'd really had no idea what any of this was about and fell in love with it immediately. And I've been pretty much a Pokemon fan my entire life since that point. So it's been a good ride.
Awesome. So the main series games, has this been something that consistently you've followed through the life cycle, through the different platforms, going through the GBA and DS and GameCube and all that kind of stuff all the way up? I mean, has this been consistent with the main series through Go?
Yes, I've been all generations for the main series. I haven't really done like the mystery dungeon stuff. It's always mostly been the main things with occasional like Stadium and Coliseum, a little bit here and there, but mostly on the straight path of just the cartridge games.
Dude, I spent so much time on N64 with the mini games in Stadium and Coliseum. They were the greatest ever.
Fun.
I always bring up the GameCube because I actually liked Gale of Darkness. So that was a good one. But yeah, the main series for me as well. I've played them all through the years, and it's led us to Go. So were you a day one Go player?
Yeah. So we had known about this for a little while that, it was coming, but we didn't know exactly when. So I was working at a Target at the time, and the group chat that I was in on Facebook was like, oh, Pokemon Go just dropped. And it was something that I was aware of, but it wasn't something that I was like desperately looking forward to doing. But once I heard it was live, I was like, oh, well, why not? Let's just boot it up. So while I was in the middle of my shift cleaning up an aisle, I boot up the game, and then I a Bulbasaur spawned. I didn't get to see all 3 of them. It was just a Bulbasaur, and I was like, well, that's kind of fitting. So I clicked on it, caught it, and I wasn't paying attention to anything that they were asking me to do because I was on my shift looking around, making sure nobody sees that I'm playing a video game, which later evolved into a bigger problem the more I got into the game. But yeah, just caught my Bulbasaur, continued by shift, and fell in love with the game afterwards.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's kind of the way it starts for many people, right? Whether they're a fan or not of Pokemon, as they get into Pokemon Go, they get that first catch, right? And they're immediately intrigued of that, kind of I want more mentality, that instant addiction. And it's like, here we are 6 years later, and we're still like, y'all got any more of them free Bulbasaur?
Please. Someone I love is hearing people that haven't played Pokemon at all, that this is their first Pokemon game, Pokemon Go. And it's always fun to hear it's the younger member of their family introduces them to the game. And they're like, fine, I'll play it with you, whatever, if it means you're going to get out and walk. And then you hear later on in this story that the younger person doesn't play anymore, and the older individual of the family is literally like level 50 times 5 and has all sorts of things. It's just hilarious.
I love when they're like, yeah, I was, playing on my son's account. It's like, bro, your son hasn't played in 2 years. That's right. Your account. That's your second account now. Just own it, man. Own it. But outside of Pokemon, so removing Pokemon completely from your life, what other video games or entertainment franchises are you interested in? How do you spend your time consuming entertainment content?
All right. Well, when it comes down to video games, it's been a while since I played other games too much, mostly because I've been really trying to keep on the grind for like the YouTube channel and stuff. But I do like Destiny quite a bit, and Destiny 2. I really enjoyed those games. I liked the idea of a first-person shooter that you can also do raid battles with, or not raids. No, those were all raids. Yeah. So those were really fun. Call of Duty I was always into, just because it was a basic shooter game that everybody liked to play. And then I'll play little games here and there like Mario and stuff like that. But as of late, there hasn't been much of that. But I try to at least remove myself from Pokemon Go occasionally just to make sure that I'm not like completely absorbed by it. And I'll watch movies quite often. I love going to the theater, getting some popcorn and turning off my brain and watching some movies. I enjoy that.
Yeah, I'm a huge movie theater experience person. So I absolutely adore going to the theater and getting copious amounts of popcorn. I'm like the big giant bucket of popcorn and a big giant Diet Coke kind of person, and just like getting refills throughout the movie, just like leaving the theater with a very messed up stomach, but having
it worth it at the end of the day.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely cool. But what motivated you to become a content creator? And when you first started, did you have any idea where this path would take you, and the thoughts that you had of what it was like to be a content creator when you first began? How has that kind of developed and changed fast forwarding through to the present day?
Well, I've always wanted to do something like this for most of my life. I used to watch a lot of Rooster Teeth, a lot of like JonTron, Ego Raptor, like a lot of YouTubers in the past. Like I've always been somebody to watch online videos, and I would always want to do it, but I didn't really have like the confidence to do it. Living like doing high school and stuff like that. I wasn't exactly the most popular kid when you're a little overweight. I was the funny kid. That was good. That helped out. But other than that, my confidence levels and being on a camera were not something that I was really, comfortable with. But then I decided, I really want to try this, and I really love Pokemon Go. This is something that I'm actually, doing daily. I'm enjoying every bit of it. I'm getting pretty lucky with these, good stuff that I've been finding. Maybe I can do it too. And I've watched a few of the other YouTubers beforehand and thought, I feel like I could do something like this. And then I tried it. And I mean, I watched that first video occasionally and realized just how cringy it is. But, seeing how it's like transformed over the time that now I don't even care. Like I'm looking at myself in the camera right now, and I'm not nervous in the slightest, no, well, I still stutter, but not as much as I used to because of it. Like, it's been great. But I will say the one thing that has surprised me is I always thought it was like all fun and games, but of course it's a business. You actually really need to promote yourself more. You need to, make sure that everything financially can work out. Like it's not just all fun and games, but it is a little bit of fun and games still. I'm happy about that.
Well, I definitely want to explore that a little bit, but you mentioned your first video. What was that first video like? When was the last time that you watched it? And I don't know, what does it make you feel when you go back and kind of take a look at something from years ago like that?
Well, one thing I noticed is obviously my confidence level in that video is terrible. Also, don't know why I chose to start off in a place with a guy with a leaf blower in the background. Like I guess it was that I thought that the like scene looked nice, like it was a good place to start. But then I'm watching it and I seem really quiet and I'm not really sure if I should be saying what I'm saying. And there's the dude with the leaf blower. You can't see him, but you can definitely hear him. I'm like, you couldn't have just gone somewhere else, man. Come on. Like,
Nice.
you could have gone anywhere else and you wouldn't have had to deal with this. But yeah. So last time I watched it was like probably 4 months ago, just for fun, because I noticed it and I was like, why not? And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, I definitely learned a lot since then, which is kind of nice. But other than that, I'm like, I'm so glad that I'm not like that anymore. I'm glad that I'm a lot more confident and comfortable with it.
Well, when I speak with creators of different formats and all these different styles, I always recommend, like, hey, go back and watch your old stuff. Go back and watch the first video, because not only will it give you this flashback of how far you've come in your content development, but also it really helps ground you and remind you, like, oh man, this was just a few years ago. And it takes a long time to get good at anything,
Right.
but especially when someone that's been successful on a content program or a platform, you see how far you've come. It really is eye-opening sometimes to say, like, wow, this is like, I listen to the early podcasts and it's like uber cringe. Like, the whole time is just like microphones are buzzing and there's like, I'm banging into the table, hitting the mic, and all this crazy stuff. The levels are all over the place. But that's always like a nice reminder of, like, yeah, well, things that I didn't think were important then are very important now, and vice versa. And
Right.
everything kind of has settled into place. So that's always a fun little exercise. But what content do you consume now? What, outside of your, when you're creating? And I know that filming and editing, all that stuff is so incredibly time consuming, but do you ever sit down and watch other people's content? And if so, who are you into right now?
Oh, so when it comes down to like Pokemon Go, I'll occasionally watch a video here and there from everyone else, but I noticed that I used to do that a lot more back then, and I feel like it kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say the word tainted because that sounds bad, but it was, I noticed that I was applying some of what they were doing to my videos to the point of it felt like it was just copying them. And I didn't like that because I want to be different, Like, I think my content as it is pretty different comparatively to a lot of them, but I don't want to be too similar because what's the point of watching somebody who's almost exactly the same? So I tried to take a step back, but occasionally I do watch a couple Pokemon Go YouTubers just to see what exactly like they're doing, if they're like really hitting it really out of the park, like what exactly about what they're doing is, making everybody want to watch, you know what I mean? So that's something that I definitely do. But when it comes down to other creators, man, I'll watch all sorts of weird stuff. There's this guy that I really like right now called the Urban Rescue Ranch. And this guy literally has just a ranch in Texas, and he is a really funny individual. He just does like weird meme stuff all the time. And he has these animals that, of course, like with these kind of channels, the animals are also kind of characters. Like, he has a Rhea, which is basically a small ostrich named Kevin, that bites him all the time. It does not like him at all. And it's beautiful to watch because he'll go, hey, Kevin, good to see you, as the thing is literally running towards him with its mouth open. Like, he's just accepted the fact that that's his life. And I mean, he's doing really well for himself. So it's fun watching those kind of videos, like a completely different, like, this has nothing to do with video games or anything. Occasionally he makes like a Minecraft reference, but like that's the most of it, So it's fun to kind of like just escape to something that you do not do at all.
Yeah, that's definitely, I do the same thing. I really enjoy like nature shows, and someone with a nice quality voiceover. Obviously I'm a podcaster, so I definitely have an ear for listening to voiceover. So a nice solid nature show with a good voiceover, man, I could lose myself in that for sure. And
David Attenborough, right? Like, I haven't
yeah,
seen
yeah.
it yet, but I really want to watch Prehistoric Planet, where it's David Attenborough talking about the dinosaurs and stuff. Like, I've seen clips and I'm just like, man, I know that none of this is real, but man, it feels so nice.
That's the Apple TV program, right? I think that's on Apple TV. So my son is a huge dinosaur person. I know we've talked about like Godzilla and stuff in the past that we're fans, but the YouTuber that he really watches a lot is called the Gaming Beaver. And the Gaming Beaver does a ton of variety dinosaur gaming content. And they did a watch along the other day with episode 1 of that Apple prehistoric show. And we almost signed up. We were like, we really wanted to watch along so bad, and we just we bailed at the last minute. But Yeah, that show definitely looks super intriguing, and anything with David Attenborough, like that voice is just like,
If
yeah,
I
I'm
could
in.
pay him to just
I'm
like
in.
do one of my videos, I'd
You're like, bro, you want cameo?
narrate me playing the game. Like I won't be talking the entire time. Just make it sound like I'm some weird wild animal. Have you
Yes.
frozen excellent curve on the shiny?
Yeah, that'd be
He gets
great.
a small hits of serotonin right into the.
So shifting over to like your content, congratulations. I saw you just crested 70,000 subscribers on YouTube,
Thank you
which
very much.
is absolutely phenomenal. Make sure you check out JT Valor, the YouTube channel, and subscribe if you haven't, because there's some absolutely phenomenal content going on over there. But how is creating, the process of creating on YouTube, and I know that there's so much that goes on that's intangible. So outside of the filming, outside of the content, outside of the editing, the actual process of understanding how YouTube works from a nuts and bolts perspective, I think this is something that sometimes gets lost on viewers, and rightfully so. Sometimes you want that process to be transparent, but here on this show, I like to kind of dig into that. So what have you learned with YouTube on how to actually create, to make sure that you're working the program and having the actual format and the platform itself work for your advantage? What is it like creating on this? I hear algorithm thrown around all the time, and as a podcaster, it's not something that's typically in my headspace. What is that all about, and how does that work from the Pokemon Go perspective of creating content and getting it out to the audience?
Well, I will say when it comes down to Pokemon Go specifically, it definitely seems a little bit more challenging in terms of, with other content, you can script something out and have something on the burner for like a month, because it doesn't matter, because the interest in that thing will probably be the same within the month. But when it comes to Pokemon Go, an event drops and you got to talk about it, or at least you got to do it. Like I can't talk about, Go Fest Seattle now. It's way too late. That's over. Like if I didn't put a video out almost immediately after I was done with it, that's something that is going to hurt me, because it's coming down to the viewers. The viewers already saw tons of people do Go Fest. Unless you have just a massive following, if you don't have a huge following, like 1 million to, or 100,000 plus subs, people are going to kind of say, well, I've already seen this kind of video, and there's not going to be much different to this one. So you have to be a little bit more timely comparatively to other YouTube videos. But also another thing with the algorithm, that's another thing, is you have to be somewhat consistent. Like you can make it work by uploading one video a week, but you have to make a really good video a week. Or you can continuously do like every other day, is what I've been trying to do. I want to do every day, but that's a very difficult thing to do. But basically constantly putting out quality-ish content that people are going to enjoy and really like, so that the algorithm goes, oh, they keep coming back. That's really good. Like you can't take many breaks with this. Like the most break you can really take is, from what I've seen, about like 5+ days, and then the algorithm really does kind of punish you for not showing up to work, I guess is really how it works. Like,
Yeah.
A lot of people think that you don't have a boss, but technically you kind of do, and you do kind of have hours. It's just more you have days to show up and do something.
You look in the mirror, start giving yourself crap. I'll tell you, you're late today.
It's 8:00 and it's 8:05. What's wrong with
But you mentioned Go Fest Seattle and creating and turning out that content, and I think that's something where we can kind of move into that a bit, because I think that a major draw when it comes to at least Pokemon Go content is travel. And we've seen many of the top YouTube Pokemon Go creators incorporate travel into their content plan, where whether it's from a promotional perspective, hey, I will be traveling to this event, to actually showing the event and then putting out the content. How does travel fit into your regiment, and how important is that into your kind of content flow of creating?
Well, it's something that I love to do, so I always try to incorporate it as much as possible. When it comes down to my actual content, I'm more of the grinder. I'll go out and actually grind the event out for 8+ hours and give you a video about it. So luckily, when it comes down to traveling, you can do the same thing pretty much everywhere. Not everywhere. Like, if I get stuck in China, then I'm pretty much out of luck. But like it's one of those things that I think is good as well, because a lot of people love to see different locations and like to know, if I were to go here and I wanted to play Pogo for whatever reason, is this the spot to go to? Or maybe, maybe like this isn't exactly somewhere I would be able to do this at. So it's something that I want to keep doing, but it's definitely not the cheapest thing in the world for sure. Like this is something that's not cheap at all.
Well, that's a great point, and I definitely feel that burn as well. And as an independent creator, you don't have travel sponsors, right? So you're not set up with companies that are going to be paying for your travel. Niantic isn't sending you out overseas and doing things like that. So how difficult is it to support the travel expenses? So take away from eating and drinking, and just sustaining yourself, but the flights, the hotel, the Ubers, the everything, that's all those other expenses that are just associated with getting yourself there. How difficult is it to support those expenses that are associated with traveling? And do you kind of budget things to the perspective of, well, it's going to cost me X to take this trip. I need to generate this much from the content that comes from that? Or do you kind of have more of a global perspective when it comes to like the cash flow that you have coming in from your content? Is it a little bit more focused trip to content, or how does that work for you?
So when it comes down to most of these trips, I always have to do the businessy thing that I think everybody should do when it comes down to these kind of business trips is budgeting. Am I going to at least make back the money that I spent on this trip when it comes down to the content and stuff like that? Because obviously, I would love to go to Australia, but I can't just go for no reason. Like, sure, like if there's a safari zone in Australia, that would be a really good thing to do because, for one, it's a safari zone event. People are going to want to see that. Plus, I'm sure there's going to be regionals, yada, yada. So you can make some content out of that. But just right now, for me specifically, going to Australia just because I want to go is not something I can do. So it always has to be tied at the moment currently to, am I going to at least make a return from this, or is this just not worth it? Like a good example too is because, as you mentioned before, I really don't have any sponsors or anything like that are helping fund me, and except for if you include my Patreon members. By the way, if any of you are watching, I love your faces. Thank you so much for supporting me, really, because it's my revenue that I make from YouTube and Twitch, and then the Patreon as well. That's my sources of income, and it's good enough to live off of for sure. But when it comes down to these trips, I definitely push myself into some pretty, let's just say we're eating ramen for a week kind of areas, but I feel like it's worth it because, for one, it's a good experience for myself, but also I am going to be getting a return from this. It's just a little bit of struggling in order to get to what I need to or what I want to achieve in the future. So, yeah, but going back to what I think I was going to say earlier is that, like, Pokemon Worlds. I would love to go to Worlds. I've never been to a Worlds event before, and there's a chance that I could make out my money from it by going and making content about it, yada, yada. But the problem with this one is flights are very expensive to get there right now. And then I have to worry about accommodation, even though that kind of seemed like it was going to be taken care of by some friends that live there. But you know what I mean? Like, it just felt like it wasn't going to give me the return that I wanted. And I'm not going to get flown over there by TPC or anything like that because I'm not partnered with them. So that's something that I just had to say, next time, we'll go there whenever we have the funds, or maybe, fingers crossed, somebody goes, we want you to be there, so.
Right. Yeah, no, I feel you. I mean, Adam and I with LuredUp, we're fortunate that we got hooked up with Niantic, and they were able to send us out to Seattle, and
Right.
hands down, without unabashedly, like, if it wasn't for that, we would have been home. You know what I mean? Like there was no way that we could have made that trip work without that. So I definitely give so much kudos to you and creators like you that are, I like to call it like self-sponsored, right? Like
Right.
it's a grassroots movement that you're literally just earning and burning. You're earning the money coming in from your content, you're putting it right back into the content. And I think that not only does that create this phenomenal loop of constant and consistent content, but it also creates this humbling perspective and an organic perspective of knowing why people are actually on this mission. They're not just like, hey, I'm going to Europe to backpack across 20 countries because I just have it like that. It's like, no, I need to go there and put in the work. And I've seen that ethic from you significantly on these events where we might be out hanging out or partying or something like that, and JT's back editing and making the grind happen, and I see the effort that goes into it.
I appreciate
And
that.
No, it's really inspiring to see because especially because I know that this is self-funded. So when you do it like that, it really motivates you to get your work done because this is coming out of your pocket. And that's again, it creates this organic feel where I know and I can feel that fire in you and your content. So that's really it's really awesome to witness.
And like little thing to say, like when it came down to the Berlin Go Fest, so like that was a bit of a costly trip, but it was one of those trips that I felt like was going to do well, and luckily it did do very well, and I'm very appreciative to everybody for watching. But yeah, like so getting to Berlin and stuff like that, it was also the other problems of so the hotel I was in probably was built around the same time the wall was built. So we didn't have the greatest internet at all. It was very bad. So after GoFest, I wake up, I do the entire event, I head back, immediately bring my files onto my computer, and I'm editing. And it takes me a little bit to edit, and it took a little bit for the files to get over because the internet's so bad. But wouldn't you know, uploading from that hotel was going to be like 5 hours or more,
Wow.
which is really bad. So I had to fly, or not fly, I had to take an Uber to a better hotel, buy their internet, sit down in their lobby, and upload a video until it was like 2 in the morning, Europe time, which luckily for America isn't that like late at all. So I'm not really even that tired, but just so I could get that thing out, so it would be one of the first videos viewed because that's very important in this industry. So that's kind of what I'm
Yeah.
doing.
Well, I've seen that, and definitely I'm with you when it comes to trying to be first to market with the content, especially because this news cycle is so short. And
Mhm.
you know, good, bad, or ugly, Pokemon Go community and the consumers of content have very short memories. So something comes out and it happens, and it's in their face, and it's now, and they're into it. And then 2 days later, it's like on to the next thing, on to the next
Exactly.
thing. So it's very important. And I think YouTube in general, especially in the Pokemon Go space, has seen these periods of like overload of content and droughts of content and this weird ebb and flow. How do you motivate yourself to consistently create when you have big name creators with big budgets and editors and teams and budgets and sponsors, and then you have tons of startups that are just grinding and putting tons of content out? How do you balance that and navigate that to create the motivation within yourself to consistently create content on YouTube, you know, to this point where you're releasing multiple videos a week? Like what's that drive and that motivational factor like navigating through this bizarre sea of YouTube?
Well, and the thing about it is that I really love it. I really enjoy what I do. So, for me, even when let's just say like there's no content right now, like right now specifically, we have a bug out event heading out here, which I guess is time gating this episode, but we're going to have one of those soon. But we also just had a week of literally nothing. There's been nothing for anybody that isn't in Japan right now, which is something kind of new that they're doing that I haven't had to experience until this Go Fest specifically, because I went to Berlin and I went to Seattle. But yeah, it's not the easiest all the time, because sometimes I'm sitting here like, what do I do? What do I make a video on? Because there's really only so much, and I don't want to be so repetitive of like, here I am grinding rocket leaders again. Like I need to mix it up a little bit. Otherwise, people are going to be kind of bored. I was like, oh, cool. He's just doing the same thing every single video. So I guess the inspiration for me as well is just like, I don't know if this sounds bad, but whatever. I like the idea of that I can kind of stand toe to toe somewhat with these people that do have all these extra things like the big budgets and the editors and stuff like that. And that also gives me a bit of like inspiration of, if I can do this right now, imagine what I'm going to be like further down the line when I'm still doing this, but like maybe I will have a little bit of help from an editor, or at least like a team, or maybe even hopefully possibly a travel sponsor kind of thing, where this stuff can just be a lot more possible, or even hell, bringing somebody with me who will give a second perspective to what I'm doing. So somebody who's basically just there to film me as I'm filming myself, just to make that little extra bit for the videos, So I guess that's just kind of like seeing where the future could be inspires me to keep going.
I love that, and I think that that's a phenomenal bit of fuel. It's like the fuel and the fire coming together to like keep that drive going. I absolutely adore that. I love that. Now, your content itself, right? You said you're the self-proclaimed Shiny King. We watch your videos because we want to see those reactions. I've told you in the past that, you know, nothing brings me more joy than seeing you be miserable when you you don't get the shinies. Like, it's like the greatest thing is it's just so funny. Like, you know, I see the sadness and disappointment in your eyes where you're like, is it a shiny? No, of course it's not. It's like, I adore that. I think it's the funniest thing ever. But shiny hunting at large, it comes in many forms. It could be a highlight of a Pokemon video. It could be a highlight of a person's personal daily gameplay. But your content being rooted in the shiny hunt, but I think the grinding that powers that shiny hunt really is what sets you apart from the other creators that are in this space.
Right.
You mentioned grinding out an event for 8 hours. I don't really hear or see that from a lot of others. What type of effort typically goes into filming? How much footage do you actually capture in an average video? And what is the editing process like of taking all that footage, and what's the average length of one of your videos? Like,
So I try to make an average length of a video at least 10 minutes or longer, though I'm learning if I want to do this daily, 10 minutes might be too much unless something really cool happens. But yeah, in general, when it comes down to, let's just say, this bug out event, what I'm going to do is, first off, I'm going to be learning about what these researches and stuff are like, because on the other side of the world, we already are going to know because they're the guinea pigs. They
right.
they learn all this stuff and they tell us.
Thanks,
So
APAC.
yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate the work. Seriously, I'm sorry for the problems, but you know what? You're really doing us a solid here. But yeah, so when it comes down to that, it's good to have a little bit of a, okay, so this is what I should focus on instead of like, I wonder what this research is, you know, like, but yeah, I already have kind of like a set path that I always go down just because it has the best spawns in it. So I know that I can find some really good stuff here and there. And when it comes down to filming, almost everything you see in my videos is what I've filmed. Very rarely is something in there that I cut out, unless I like really butchered the take, which happens from time to time, and I'm just like, well, I guess it really wasn't that important. We'll just leave that one out. But after all of the filming, usually I just go on a full charge on the camera right here, try to do quite as much as I can, showing off the checks. Here's what this raid is like, blah blah blah. And then after all of that, I either Uber or walk home, depending on the path that I took, because sometimes I am very far away from where I started. And if it's on the weekend, we have a train, but unfortunately it doesn't work on the weekends. So, after all of that, I get home, put all this into my computer, edit it together for about 2 to 3 hours, and then go to sleep, and then repeat the process the next day.
So you're really looking to create a 10-minute piece of content. You could be upwards of 10 to 12 hours worth of actually creating.
Right. Heading out, walking, just trying to do everything. Like, I don't want to be somebody who just takes 2 hours and makes that a video. I mean, you could if something really cool happens, like say I pop my daily incense and I get 5 Galarian birds off of that thing. That alone is a video. That alone will be more than enough content where people are going to be like, oh my God, how did you get 5 of those? To which I would answer, I have no clue. But, like, in the end of the day, I feel like for me, I like to show that it's not just, as some people say, YouTuber luck. It's I'm literally out here for basically like a gift, quote unquote, and hoping that I run into something good, and constantly walking and sweating in this hot Florida sun just to try to make a piece of content for everyone.
What's your weekly adventure sync total like?
I usually try to push for at least 100 plus, but that's again dependent upon my motivation. If there's a cool event, like say this bug event, where there's some stuff that I really want to get, even though that I'm going to be kind of in a different location for this one, so I will see how that goes. But usually it's down to the motivation. If I like what I see and I'm really excited for it, it'll be up there. If it's kind of a lackluster event where people are like, at least to me, I'm a player that plays kind of hard comparatively, so I need to always remember that not everybody plays like this. But if it's something I'm not very motivated in, that adventure sync, I at least push it to about 50 to 70 just for my own personal health. But yeah.
Right. And as far as your editing process, what software do you use, and has it been the software that you've used for a while, or has that kind of changed along with the hardware? Like, what's your kind of technical setup like?
I just use Adobe Premiere Pro. That's pretty much it. I'm trying to learn After Effects because you can really do some really cool things in After Effects for sure. But right now, it's pure just a Premiere Pro, and I've been using it for a long time. In fact, I learned how to use it in high school, and then later on, I was using like in the very beginning of like college, I was using iMovie, which is somewhat similar, not quite fully similar, but it's a similar-ish process. And then later on, we got the Adobe Creator Suite on our computers at the college I was going to, and that's what we had to use to make like demo reels. So I got to learn that again. So then when it came down to making a video for YouTube, I was like, all right, well, I mean, this is what I've been using. Might as well just keep using it. And I love it. Fantastic.
Nice.
I've learned a lot of really cool things with it too that you don't actually have to use After Effects, but it's a little better in After Effects.
All right. Well, I think that we have a solid picture of your YouTube process, but let's talk Twitch. How has Twitch changed this process, and what's it like creating on that platform versus a platform like YouTube? I mean, is this a complete paradigm shift?
Yeah, it is a pretty big shift in terms of I like YouTube a lot because I'm not on 24/7. I am on when the camera is on, and then after that, I'm just back to walking and listening to a podcast or whatever as I'm doing it. Yeah, shout out. Yeah, so that's something that you can't really do on Twitch because you need to be engaging people at all times. You need to keep their interest. I can't just sit for 30 minutes doing nothing and not talking to anybody and expect anybody to watch. I have to have a raid going or at least engaging with the community. But that is the thing that I like about Twitch is this is somewhere where I can talk to my community. Like if somebody really wants to ask me a question and I didn't get it to them in the comment section in the video, ask me here. And I'm pretty good about reading almost everybody's stuff. Like I'm getting pretty good at just quickly reading and answering people's questions. So in terms of I feel exhausted after a stream.
More so than walking 8 hours in the Florida heat.
I'm totally honest with you. Yeah, man. Like, unfortunately, I haven't been eating so great, so I don't look it on the top. But man, my legs. Like, I was hearing so many people during the Seattle Go Fest complaining about how their legs were sore and all that, and I just kind of had to smile and nod. I didn't want to be that guy, but like, this really did not affect me in the slightest. The hills were a little different. I'll give you that.
Dude, those hills in Seattle were brutal.
Yeah.
We did the first raid tour thing we did on Friday in Seattle before they had kind of dropped in additional gyms to make it a little bit closer to each other. Where we had to walk 5 blocks between raids, up and down and up and down. We were like holding on to the railings and holding on to the street signs as we were walking because it was brutal.
Did you see that one? I mean, I'm sure there was so many of them, but there was this one, and I think I was with you guys for this one. It was like the steepest hill. And like they even had stairs that were zigzagging on the side
Yes.
of the hill. I was like, what is this? And why is this here? How is this legal? This is ridiculous. Like,
yeah, it was like Jamal was cracking up because he goes, "Hey man, I saw you leaning on the sign." It was like if that sign wasn't there, you definitely would have just rolled down the hill, holding on for dear life. It was insane. But Twitch, I've learned that Twitch can kind of offer creators this flexibility when it comes down to the variety of their content. And for your content specifically, I've seen TCG Cards make a lot of impact and a lot of presence on your streams. What draws you to the cards, and kind of how has that relationship with the cards developed through Twitch and over time for you?
So for me, I've always loved the TCG. I've never really played it. I've always been just kind of like a collector, but that again stems from, when I had the Game Boy Color and stuff when I was younger, the cards were actually sold on the base I was living on, which was, different. And my mother bought me a pack of cards. And sure enough, wouldn't you know, that addiction started to spread because everybody in school was doing it too. When it came down to Pokemon cards, though, I did kind of fall out of those for a little bit and started doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Because that was the next big thing. And then since then, there was Magic the Gathering, which I really enjoyed that game, but I haven't played in a while. But I've gotten back into the collecting scene when it kind of fired back up and again, and it seemed like everybody was excited for it. So I was like, well, this gives me an excuse to get back into my cardboard crack addiction. Why not? So,
yeah.
And I enjoy opening the cards with people, because it's not just me going, oh, I got it, nice. It's like, let's see what we got, because sometimes, I love watching, there's this one dude, something Island. I feel terrible now that I'm forgetting his name now, but he's a dude who lives in Hawaii, and he opens cards all the time. Like, he's got a thing where basically you buy them and he opens them for you and then he'll send them to you later. But I just love watching it because, like, what is he gonna pull? Like, hey, is that something shiny in the back there? That looks pretty nice,
Like, yeah, I see something. I see something back there. No, I agree. It's super compelling and super exciting. Now, with the core of your audience being Pokemon Go, has the TCG has it created a new audience, different people, or are you seeing people from the Pokemon Go community enjoy it? I know the crossover is fantastic right now with the current Pokemon Go TCG expansion, but outside of that, are your Pokemon Go fans enjoying the TCG content, or are you seeing like this development of additional audience and secondary audience through putting the TCG content out through Twitch?
To be honest with you, I don't know if I've gained a lot of people just due to the TCG alone. I would imagine that most of the people that are excited about it already were kind of into cards in the beginning. I occasionally get some people that are brand new that will say, "Oh, you do cards too?" Like, in an exciting looking way. Like, I'll go, "Oh yeah, we do that occasionally." When it comes down to YouTube, I don't believe I would ever be able to make a TCG video on my channel and have it perform very well, because most people are very much here for my, like, I try to incorporate it here and there, like try to sneak it in, because I do enjoy it quite a bit. And, just to give people a little bit of a, hey, look at this, some cardboard too, it's just kind of like, because I've learned this with YouTube, is that if anybody ever does like a sudden big change into something different, people get upset about it because it's not what they're used to.
Sure.
But if you slowly introduce something I have stopped doing and I need to do it again, is people really liked when I started cooking in my videos. And I wouldn't mind doing it again, but the reason why I stopped was because I ran out of things to cook. Like, I'm sure I could look up all sorts, but I'm not going to spend like $30 for a video just to make a risotto or something like that. And I don't even know if I'd even make a good one, so that might just be wasted money in the first place. But yeah, like, I do enjoy the TCG quite a bit, and I would love to try to make maybe even a second channel for it in the future, just for the people that would really like to see that alone. But we'll see.
Nice. And you said you're kind of on an every other day kind of thing on YouTube. How often are you streaming on Twitch?
I try to do it at least twice a week. It also just comes down to what is happening in the game. Like, if it's something that I really feel like I need to be out and grinding and making videos about, then I'll do it. I've noticed that my sit down streams do really well, but now Pokemon Go is very much staying away from the sit down stuff. So those streams have gotten a little shorter because it's really just me sitting and talking to people, which is fine. And I enjoyed that, but I know more people are more interested in other things. Like, I've actually started giving away a lot of the codes from the TCG cards, so people could try to get a avatar item. So that's kind of been fun. But I've also started minorly streaming on YouTube now, for like spotlight hours, because I noticed that whenever I do a mobile stream on Twitch, people aren't as interested. But when I do it on YouTube, people lose their minds. And I'm like, okay.
Interesting. Yeah. And I've seen, that there was that pandemic. When the pandemic first hit, we saw this giant migration, right? You had so many of the Pigo YouTubers move over to Twitch, and then they became like Pokemon variety streamers, where all of a sudden they're playing Let's Go and they're doing main series and all this different stuff. And now that we're seeing the behaviors and the push from Niantic to really move away from at-home play, with the differences to remote raiding, with the increased cost of raid passes, with incense not performing like it used to when you're not moving, we're seeing the real push to get back outside again. So while we saw all these people draw down the funnel into Twitch because they could play from home, now we're seeing the opposite. So it's an interesting dynamic of how to use both platforms to your advantage. And like you said, it really depends on what the event is and how it can be engaged with and played with, because you see so many different play styles that would lend themselves to being out socially exploring and exercising, versus, hey, I could just hang out and talk about this one from home, and it's not going to really take away or detract from the quality of content, because it could still be engaging, even if it's more of a editorial style video. And I think that's something you do really well. because you combine visual elements, like you were saying. I watched your the latest video that you just put out on YouTube where you're talking about the different new regionals and things like that, and it has a very clean and sharp visual aspect to it. And I was like, it doesn't matter that he's not outside and playing, because I still get engaging content that I could watch that has cool visuals, and it doesn't take away. It doesn't make me feel like, oh, this is like he's not phoning this one in. Because I've seen YouTubers where it's like they're used to being outside and doing all this crazy engaging stuff, but then just to maintain consistent content, they'll just kind of like sit in front of the desk and spew out some information. I'm like, bro, you're phoning this one in. Like this is definitely not the vibe.
I try my best to not do that. I never
you could tell. I could definitely tell.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
But with YouTube and Twitch being your main platforms, how does social media fit into all this? Because I know that the vibe of the community on Reddit and the vibe of the community in Discords is very different from the vibe of the community on Twitter and on Instagram. So how does that whole thing work in from a content perspective? How do you make social media be a part of this kind of robust environment that you're creating within the JT Valor brand? Where does social media fit into all this for you?
So it's something that I don't feel like I'm really using to the best of my ability. I really use Twitter more as a information source to find when things are happening, because like Pokemon Go really mostly announces things, as far as I've noticed, on Twitter. There's never really been, as far as I've seen, big posts anywhere else, but maybe that's just because I'm missing them. So for me, I just use it for that, and then I like to gauge how people are feeling. But the problem is Twitter is filled with people that are pretty negative, unfortunately. So I'm always going to see something very upset or angry, or an occasional very nice cowboy hat Caterpie, please. But that's the small ray of sunshine in the darkness. But
I love the cesspool that is Twitter. I love it so much. Like I not only do I like not want it to change, but if it were to change, I would want people to lean into it even more, just because I love the fact that it's become just like this absolute wild west. See, governed by Cowboy Hat Caterpie. Shout out to Mike Nerdlaw. But it's definitely a different dynamic, and you could be out and about and playing with people in person, and you get this incredible vibe and these incredible feelings and perspective. And then you go to Twitter and you get something completely different, and you're like, wait a second, are we playing the same game? Are these the same people? It's like, it's definitely a unique vibe. So as a creator, learning how to differentiate the differences between each social platform, how people react and behave on each social platform, versus how does this turn into me broadcasting my content on these platforms? How do I come across to this community and make it feel like I'm not being abrasive? It's really difficult.
Yeah,
because they all act differently.
Yeah, I personally, I never want to come across as negative. Is something that I really want to show in the video, is that even when I'm not overly happy about something, I'm not going to be like screaming and yelling like that, you guys are the worst and I hate you. I don't think that that's ever the correct way to go about it. I've only once dipped in that area, and that was because of the Ultra Unlock for Heracross. But I think that was a lot of us in Florida and Central and South America were really unhappy that that was the case. And even that video is just like, I don't understand why you guys did this. Never once was, throwing the F-bomb down or anything like that, just like,
right.
But I don't know. Like, I feel like there's some people that really do try to lean in just for the clicks even. And it's a line I don't really want to cross, even though that might be good for views. It's just, why try to stir the pot even more? Because we're trying to make sure people are happy and wanting to see this game, and play it. Like, and of course, I don't want to be rude and say like, no criticisms allowed. I mean, I criticize the game in my videos sometimes, occasionally. I just don't do it in, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. I just go, this could be a lot better. Here's how it could have been a little better.
I hear that wholeheartedly. And I mean, that's definitely a line that on LuredUp we try to balance. Like, we want people to be able to broadcast and have a platform to share that passion, right? The passion that fuels this game is what makes it so compelling. That's what makes it so cool, is people are passionate about it. And I want people to be able to share those passions. And I want people, if they're not happy with something, to be able to express themselves in a way that allows them to broadcast that passion. But the moment it crosses that line of disrespect, it's like, all right, I don't think we're on the same level here anymore. Like we're not really, we don't have the same goals. For years, people have been, mocking me and LuredUp, saying that, like, we're kissing Niantic's butt or doing whatever it may be because we stay positive even in negative situations. And it's like, look, I love this game. I'm not going to say that I'm not going to pick up this game tomorrow morning as soon as I wake up and play it because I'm unhappy with the shiny rate of a Pokemon. However, I will let people know this is why I'm upset, and this is what would have made me not feel upset. And I think the Heracross video that you put out was a great example, because I remember watching that. I was like, all right, JT's getting fired up. I was like, this isn't typically something you see, but I felt that passion, and sharing that passion with this community as a creator is what makes it so exciting, because those are the type of people I want engaging in my content, because I know they care, for better or for worse. I know they care about what we're talking about, and that creates a great dynamic between the creator and the consumer of the content. Right. Now, there's been definitely a shift in user attention span, which has turned the 15-minute video to a 12-minute video to a 10-minute video to the 7 to 8-minute video. And now we're seeing platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels that are bringing that down to sub 3 minutes and sub 90 seconds.
Right.
What does that make you feel? And how is that kind of impacting your kind of outlook of the future when it comes to how you're creating video? And have you ever messed with any of this real short form stuff? And what do you think of that whole movement?
So I personally am not one to really just like focus on TikTok videos. Like I don't actually do hardly ever TikTok, but I see where it's going in terms of, I guess, people just want a temporary thing. And I've actually been falling into it a little bit with, I think Instagram and Facebook do this, where they'll have like those like quick reel videos. And so I do fall into that. So I guess technically I am kind of falling into it, because that's the same as TikTok. You just scroll up and you're in another video. But I don't know, like part of me kind of likes it in terms of sometimes you just want to see something kind of quick and, oh, wow, that was a really good 30 seconds of something. But then another part of me is like, I kind of want to know what else happened in that video. And you don't ever get the answer to that. And that really kind of gets me. Like when it comes to YouTube, if I leave on a cliffhanger, I know that I'm going to get the answer in the next video. That's not quite something you'll see most of the time with TikTok, that I've noticed at least. So for me, I'm not actually the biggest fan of it, but in the end of the day, if that's where the mass is going, you have to follow it as a creator. And I've been playing around with it a little bit. I do shorts every once in a blue moon. I think I need to be more consistent with it. And I've noticed that a lot of people are successful by just doing highlights of things that have already happened, but just in short form to show it off. And I personally don't have an issue with that if you just want to be like, remember when this happened forever ago? But also there might be some new people that never saw it before, but hopefully they come in and decide to watch whole videos. Like, oh, so this guy's done some cool things. Let's watch this whole video and see what happens,
Yeah, I think in addition to the actual differences with the length of the video, I think one of the key differences is also the format. You go from having a landscape shot video to vertical portrait mode style video. It's very different, and it's a very different look, and it really changes the way that you could film, because especially if you're used to filming cinematic, or you're used to filming these sweeping shots or landscape, or even your B-roll, that could not come across the same way if all of a sudden you're only seeing a vertical slice of that. So it really changes the philosophy that you have to have even during the shooting process, where unless you're focusing and saying, hey, I will be shooting a portrait format video now, it's kind of hard to make something that was shot in landscape work in portrait unless you kind of have that foresight, which is why I'm always interested in asking creators, like, is this something you think about in your content? Because you kind of have to have this awareness going into it because of the format differences.
Well, it's actually an interesting thing is I do occasionally, whenever I'm planning on doing a short, I actually have a tripod for my camera here where I'll actually set it up so it does this and turns it upwards like this. And then all of a sudden it's filmed correctly. It's weird though, I will say. Like, it doesn't feel quite right. And some of my shorts are literally just really edited together landscape shots with the other video underneath it that's blurred, so it's the same thing, but it's filling the entire screen. Like, it's been something that, like, I guess maybe I'm just getting old. I'm like fighting. I'm like, nah, you
get off my lawn, you TikTokers.
get off my
Hula
lawn.
hoops. Well, as we look to the future, what is next for JT Valor? Maybe not vertical format videos, but what's next for JT Valor when it comes to your content? Is there anything that you're kind of hoping to accomplish as we ride out the rest of 2022?
Well, for the rest of 2022, my big goal in general for the channel is I'd like to hit 100,000 subscribers. I don't know if that's going to happen by the end of this year. Would be cool. And there's always a chance. You never know with these kind of things. Like, I could either really stall out, or I could skyrocket, or I could just gradually keep growing. Either way, I would say a fun goal to try to hit would be possibly getting to 80,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I think that's more of a realistic goal. And when it comes down to actual content, I do want to start making more short form content just to see how it goes. I've been watching some people that have started just doing daily 8-minute videos, and I think that might be a smart idea as well. Let's see if I can make that work. But I don't want it to just be, and maybe this is just my creative side getting in my way, but I don't want it just to be random BS that's happening. I kind of want there to be a point of the video, like, and I don't know, maybe, but again, that might just be me getting in my own way, and I need to just get over that, and suddenly I might see a ton of growth from it, but who knows, really.
Well, that's it's interesting that you said like the push to 80,000 to 100,000, and something I definitely wanted to talk about, and this is a good time to do it, is what I've seen from you at these events. Seeing you interact with the fans in Seattle was something that it blew me away, first of all. And when I brought it up to my close group and my immediate group, we all felt exactly the same way. And we couldn't believe how incredibly gracious you were with your time. You were so patient. And we all, because the LuredUp community, the immediate group of LuredUp people that we travel with and all that stuff, we're really into development of creators, and we really want to see people succeed. And we have these nerdy conversations that we may not be talking about the game, but we're actually talking about content, or we're actually talking about the development of creators. And when it came to my whole community, seeing the way you were behaving in Seattle with your fans, we all had this vibe and this all feeling of like, this is what is going to make JT get to 100K. This is what's going to make him continue to have growth, because you were doing that in a way that we weren't seeing from many other creators that were on the ground at Seattle. So when it comes to interacting with the community on the ground, actual FaceTime with your viewers, how important is that to you, your process, and then ultimately your longevity strategy? Because I think this is something that's kind of one of these intangibles when it comes to the creative process of developing an audience and retaining an audience. Is this all part of the strategy here, or like this? Because you really handle yourself in a way that is admirable when it comes to your fans.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, when it comes down to that, it's more just, I don't know, I guess it's more just like meeting somebody who is actually a fan of the content. For me, is kind of exciting because, I live in Florida. I occasionally see people, but I also know a lot of these people. So if anybody says, hey, you did a good job on the video, I'm like, oh, thanks, man, appreciate it. But that's because that's somebody I like am buddies with, But then some random person comes up to me and tells me that they really enjoy the content. Of course, I feel like I should always give them a little bit of my time just to say, well, hey, thanks so much for watching. And then, like, how is your event going? Have you gotten what you're looking for? Well, I hope you get it, and that's not just me phoning it in. That's legit. Like, I hope that you do get it, because like, that's kind of like, I enjoy the fact that they're enjoying the game too. And I actually have these conversations just with random people that don't even know what I do. I'll just talk to them because I'm more of a sociable person whenever I'm comfortable. So yeah, and also I've had bad experiences with people that I looked up to in terms of like that kind of stuff, like that I was a fan of. Like, nothing serious ever really happened, but just more like, you could tell that this individual, either I got them on a bad day, or they just don't really want to engage with the people that watch them, and they kind of just want to. And everybody's different. You're not entitled to having to interact with anybody if you don't want to. But I want somebody to walk away thinking, oh, he was a nice guy. Like, I'm glad that, and hopefully that they don't feel like embarrassed or anything, like I always try to talk to them enough that they feel like they got a good conversation. And yeah.
No, that definitely comes across. And, with Adam and I being part of like the meet and greet thing at GoFest Seattle, we had a chance to speak with a lot of kids and a lot of parents of kids. And I could say with confidence that many of them brought up the kids' interactions with you and how positive they were, and the fact that, you know, that the kids would built memories that they're going to remember forever because they're able to spend a good amount of time with you, and they really felt like they had a strong takeaway. So kudos to you on that, because I really think that that's an important part of audience development and an important part of creating this longevity, because we've seen kids grow with this game. We've, you know, I'm an old ass man, right? But I've seen kids that had started playing this, you know, in their early teens, and now they're driving and creating their own raid trains and things like that.
Exactly.
So being able to develop a community like that, I think what you're doing is super great, especially with the younger viewers, because not only do they look up to YouTubers, but when they're able to have that FaceTime, it takes that on-screen persona and it all of a sudden makes it real. It's like, oh my God, I met JT Valor. And I would,
he wasn't a horrible human being.
You know, anytime I would, like, the young kids would come up and onto the stage at the meet and greet, and they had like Valor on, I would be like, you know, I would shout out Valor, of course, and Adam would always look for the instinct players, but I would shout out Valor, and I would bring up, you know, JT Valor, he's a big Valor. He was like, oh my God, I met JT. It was just always, it was just like, anytime, like this game can be very unforgiving. The community can be very unforgiving, especially when you're talking about some of the dark crevices of Reddit and Twitter and all that kind of stuff. So when I hear wholesome stuff like that, or I look over and I see you're surrounded by like a group of kids, I'm like, dude, he's killing it. He's like making it happen. It's very wholesome and very appreciative, you know, of our team to see that stuff happen, because that means a lot to us to see that you're kind of harvesting this incredible vibe for the community. It's super important. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you.
But that's pretty much a show, man. I really appreciate your time, dude. This was
this was a good conversation. I really enjoyed this one.
I love it, man. I love being able to dig into the technical side and the back end of stuff that you really don't always get to talk about in content. I think it's really eye-opening, and it's very inspiring for me to be able to hear kind of this behind the scenes style stuff of what goes on and what goes into making the content that, you know, for me, I could just like make some popcorn and sit on my butt and watch. And it's like realizing that, wow, this was 8 to 10 hours worth of, you know, grinding on foot, sweating in the Florida heat, that turned into like literally having to take a train home and then edit for 3 hours and then do what you got to do to get it uploaded. It's like, it makes you appreciate the content that much more. And definitely, I think that comes across very, very strongly and organically in your videos. But for just as we wrap up here, where can we find you? And of course, the link tree for JT will be in the description, so you can connect everywhere that he is. But for our audio listeners, where can you find JT Valor on the internet?
Well, if you were to type in JT Valor on YouTube, that would be a great place to start. That is the main place where I put most of my content. And then if you wanted to actually have minor chats with me, you could go to Twitch. That's a good place as well. And I really enjoy going on the Twitch channel and talking with everybody. Other than that, also please follow me on Twitter. That's definitely a big one for me for sure. I definitely do most of my social media stuff on there. So if you want to hear announcements, like maybe there's a meetup or something like that, which might be happening soon, cough. That's definitely a place for that. So yeah, no, yeah, those are the main places. I also have an Instagram if you would like to go to the Instagram. I definitely need to work on that one more, but you know, if you do, also TikTok as well.
Yeah, baby, let's go. Let's do it. But all right, everyone, thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate it. JT, thank you again for sharing all this really cool back-end insight on your process and your content. We really do appreciate it. But if you are listening to this in audio format, you can check out the video over on our YouTube channel, so you can definitely check that out. That's youtube.com/Pokemon Professor Network. We also will have clips of this up on our socials as well. Make sure you just check out twitter.com/PokeProfNet, short for Pokemon Professor Network. That'll be there. And if you need any info on the show, you can check out our website, LuredUp.com, and of course the network's website at PokemonProfessor.com. But that's pretty much a wrap for everything. JT, thank you once again for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Seriously, I love doing this. I really do appreciate it, man.
No problem. And for everyone else, keep training, trainers. We'll see you next time.